This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
I'm back with ChangeMaker Tracey Scott from the Chicago Housing Authority. We've been discussing her role as the CEO of the nation's third largest housing authority, serving over 60,000 families in Chicago. Now, Tracey, CHA is a longstanding moving to work PHA, and you also happen to be the president of the MTW Collaborative. There's so much to talk about regarding MTWs, but tell us about the impact it's had on the city.
MTW, as it's called, from the 1996 Appropriations Act, for anyone who wants to take down the details, is still considered a demonstration program. I consider it a way of life that really speaks to the future of this industry, in that for Chicago and for the other MTW agencies, we have had to operate prior to MTW based on rules and regulations that were written in Washington, D.C., everything down to what rents we paid and how we considered families eligible for receiving this assistance. And with MTW, we have moved it from a centralized Washington, D.C. focus and cookie cutter approach to the communities. And what that's meant for us here in Chicago is that we can design programs that fit the needs of our community. So I go back to what I was saying about if you want to ask somebody about their home and what they want or need, in the same way, we can say, what do we want or need here in the city of Chicago and for Chicagoans, and design our programs around that versus taking a cookie cutter approach that may not be appropriate. And that's everything from certainly identifying the rents and the rent structure to creating programs that are specific to our community around things such as home ownership, the way that we structure our programs, the self-sufficiency, the family self-sufficiency as an example. We use our flexibility under the MTW program. We changed what had been designed out of DC to create a goal-oriented program where we were rewarding families and matching their savings in that program with our funds. The second part of that, in addition to the local innovation and the local program development, is the flexibility around the funds. So we couldn't do the family self-sufficiency program the way we do it if we didn't also have the flexibility to fund it differently. And I'll just outline this. If we're not an MTW agency, our funds from the public housing and the voucher program could only be used in that way. And as an MTW agency, we have the ability to move funds wherever we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. And when we talk about families moving forward, the critical part here is that under most of the HUD funding programs, we do not get money to provide the services and supports that we can for families. And so every time if we're talking about economic power, if we're talking about providing scholarships to our children or to adults or who are going to college, or if we're talking about supporting our seniors and providing meal programs and socialization coordination, we do not receive money directly from HUD, from Congress through HUD to provide those services. So that's probably one of the larger areas where we see that flexibility of the funding. The second area is on the development side. In order to develop these new units and the new apartments and build community, we have the ability under MTW to build funds in order to move real estate projects along.
So in order for you to use your MTW status, that's part of the package that you're adding units. Is there a certain goal of or a certain number of homes that you want to make available over the next few years, and MTW is the tool to do that? Or is that running parallel with other efforts like RAD or, tax credit applications?
Almost all of our new development deals have tax credits in them, and that certainly that tool is used across the country, and it's been very effective in building more affordable housing in the country. So we almost always have tax credits in when we're building new communities with our private sector and nonprofit partners. The thing about tax credits, though, is that in order to really leverage that, we need the 9% tax credits, and those are competitive. And so while we may want more, we know that there are other providers, developers in the community that may not be working with us that are also seeking them. And so we compete for those with our partners as much as others. And so ideally, there would be more tax credit authority available specifically for housing authorities. I'd love to see that, and there has been talk of that over the last couple of sessions in Congress with the SAVE Act. But we would like more of those 9%. That helps. And then there are, of course, the 4% bonds that are part of almost every deal. So there are a variety of ways of being creative with the different financing tools. But there simply is not enough money from one single source to make that happen. Now, that said, in the last 3 years since I've been here, we have right now almost 2,000 units under construction or about to start construction that we've just closed on. And that's amounted to about over $1 billion, almost $1.4 billion in investment in the Chicago community for mixed income housing development and community development. And so I'm really proud of the team that we have here and moving deals forward even during a pandemic so that we can contribute to the need for both affordable housing and reinvestment in our communities to make them strong communities.
A couple of other innovative funding mechanisms that I noticed you guys were doing was something with the Chicago Fire Football Club. What is that like, and how did that come across?
Right. So the Chicago Fire Football Club opportunity came to us. The Chicago Fire was looking for a larger tract in the land so that they could move their headquarters from the suburbs outside of Chicago into the city. And we have a community called Roosevelt Square, which was previously Abla Homes, one of our larger family communities within the city. And we have finished one phase. We finished one phase almost 15 years ago, and we're actually starting on the third phase of that community with housing. And we have also quite a few tracts of land sprinkled throughout the community. When this project started 20 years ago, they tore down, as I mentioned earlier, we had torn down some of the high-rise buildings that were in disrepair and so on. And that left a large tract of land of about 25 acres that had not been activated and had been identified as something that we would do in a later phase. It sat vacant for almost 20 years. And so when this opportunity came about, we thought that this was an excellent way to both reactivate land and also build a community asset. So if I go to the idea of community building, it's not just about the housing. There are other amenities. There are jobs and opportunities there. There are commercial and retail. There is good transportation. There's green space. All of those make a strong community, in addition to, lest I forget, strong public neighborhood schools. And so this community has started to, received our investments along with our partners, Related Midwest, in rebuilding that first phase. And in the 20 years intervening, other people have started to move to the community, and it started to come back in many ways. And so we felt like this community asset really added to both our residents, but also to the housing authority's ability to reinvest in the public housing that we did not tear down that also needs the investments. So long story short, we negotiated a market rate ground lease with the Chicago Fire. That's going to bring over $40 million over the next 40 years to the Housing Authority to use to invest in repairs as well as potentially building more affordable housing. The other thing that we did, and this is where it goes to the alignment of the partners, is that the Chicago Fire has also agreed to up to $8 million in investments up front in some of the repairs that we needed. There's a senior building that's nearby, that's adjacent to this property, that needs some more parking. Why do they need more parking? Because they are on a street in what was a disinvested community that now has been built up, and they've lost their street parking. And so, so a good problem to have. But now, in order for the Housing Authority to help with their needs, we will get the funds and the ability to address those and allow them to also participate more fully in the community that they've been in. The other things is we'll get jobs and career opportunities. So we see that this project really adds to the community building. It helps our residents who are there to also benefit from this. And I will add a last note that a lot of folks they don't always think about it, but we know in this industry that it really is about the children. It really is about that next generation. And if you look at the Chetty study that came out recently about social mobility, one of the things that they said is that a child who is exposed and builds new social networks early on has a greater ability to move forward in the future. And that economic mobility is more likely in the future. And so something like soccer, as we call it here, or football, as the whole rest of the world calls it, we want our children to be exposed to new ideas. A lot of our kids, if you ask them, they're thinking about basketball and American football. And so what if they started thinking about football as the rest of the world knows it, as not only as the athletes, but also sports management, being exposed to people from all around the world coming to this facility? What a great opportunity. And so one of the things that we insisted on working with our residents there and the resident leadership is that it's not just about jobs in construction or jobs on the outside or thinking about being a superstar athlete, but it's also about that sports management and careers, and how do we expose our children to new ideas that they may have not have even thought of.
I sure hope your team is going to nominate this for a NARO Merit Award, because this sounds like it's a classic one, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes. We've already putting together those applications.
Speaking of winning awards, you guys have also brought in an award for your historic preservation, and explain some of the best practice that surrounded that award.
So we have, and I'm pleased to say, and again, this is about partnership. So with many partners offering their expertise as well as our guidance, and even guidance from residents. One of the things that we have been really pleased about is where we are preserving those properties. We have received awards for the design and the innovation in the design, as well as the preservation. And one of those is at Lathrop homes. We received several awards, actually, for the design there. The other properties, and that is historic preservation. I'm sorry. That's one of the first public housing properties built in the city of Chicago. And so that preservation project with partners Related Midwest and the architects that were involved with that, it retains both the flavor of the original development in addition to building a very large green in the center. And so this has become a center of this community and a place for people to gather and for events. And so really proud of that design there. Another area is a partnership that began several years before I arrived with the public library system. And that is a combination of public library on the ground floor and then housing above. And we have 4 of those examples that partners have built, and I think almost all of them have received awards. I know 3 out of the 4 at least, and I'm pretty sure that all 4 of those properties have received awards for the design and innovation, but also the mixed use nature of it, where we're adding value to the community and a resource that for the broader community.
You mentioned earlier, and I want to loop back to this about a home ownership program. And as I was doing some research and prep here, I realized that you guys just celebrated your 800th resident to close on a home through this program. Is that correct? And if so, we are all offering up a huge applause for this milestone. Tell us what that journey has been like, and is that true, the 800th resident?
We have. We celebrated our 800th resident. It was actually, we're above that now. I think at our rate, we've been closing even since the pandemic around 60 new homeowners a year. And
Wow.
so we, we celebrated 800th resident. And in this program called Choose to Own, which is where we use the voucher to supplement the family's mortgage payment. And of those 800 residents that we've had over the last several years since we've had this program, about 300 of those families have moved off subsidy entirely. And I think that really speaks to when we talk about economic power, when we talk about wealth building, and when we talk about public housing as a stepping stone to that economic power, and public housing or public and subsidized housing as a temporary solution to help families move forward. That really speaks to the power of what you can use this funding for those families that are able.
We've talked a lot about Chicago, and we've talked a lot about the Chicago Housing Authority. Now, if I can transition here, can you tell us more about you personally and professionally, if you'd like to share, maybe how you first got started working in affordable housing, and give us a glimpse of what that journey has been like for you?
So my personal story in terms of both public housing and public service is a story of serendipity. I didn't have a plan to enter public service. I spent the first 20 years of my career in high tech and internet, even before it was called World Wide Web, working on technology products and helping to design new products and services in the technology space. For a while with AT&T in its various names and forms in different parts of the country. Started in Atlanta, moved to the West Coast and working in the San Francisco area in Silicon Valley. And I happened to move back to Atlanta, had occasion to move back to Atlanta, and I was approached by someone who was with the Housing Authority, and they said that the head of the Housing Authority, Renee Glover, as many people may know her name, who is a true visionary when it comes to this space, she was looking to bring in folks from the private sector to bring those private sector skills and know-how to government and to public service. And so I just happened, as I said, serendipity. They approached me, and I said, "Well, why not? I'm pretty adventurous that way," and moved into this. And I have to say that this was one of the best professional and personal decisions I have made in my entire career. And I'd like to speak to, because I like to call it that I was being paid for my volunteer work, because I've always been very active in the community. I served on the public library board in the city of Oakland when I lived there, and I have always been involved in green initiatives like recycling and sustainability. I almost want to say I remember Earth Day when it started, but I think I'm not quite that old. So but I'd always been involved in my community in homelessness issues as well. And so to be able to say that I'm really being paid for the causes that I believed in, which is how do families and children move forward, and how do they make progress, and how do we ensure that everyone has a roof over their head and a place to build on and a place to dream. This really brought all of that together. And so now 15 years later, here I am. The other part of that story is that it really spoke to me because I think I have a distinction in this industry in that I have only worked for MTW agencies. So I worked in Atlanta for almost 10 years, and then I moved to Minneapolis, and then now Chicago. And all three of those cities and the housing authorities are moving to work agencies. What that means is that somebody coming from the private sector who's always worked in innovation, working on building new products, new services, and customer service focused, that I could actually really apply those skills into this industry. And I joke with my team. He said, "Yeah, when you think of innovation, the first thing that comes to mind is public housing, right?" And it really does. There really is this opportunity. And that's what's so powerful about this MTW program, is that we do have the ability to be creative, not only in financing and new development, but also when it comes to saying we are going to take a needs-based approach to the work that we do. So if our families and our communities need something, we have the ability to design something that can meet that need. And that is such a powerful opportunity that's why I think of MTW as the future of this industry.
And you're the president of the MTW Collaborative, so it only makes sense here. It's like it's all come full circle for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, and this organization, the MTW Collaborative, we are now what I would consider the fourth industry association for public housing authorities, and we're growing rapidly because of the expansion of the program that started in 2016, and we started out with 39 housing authorities. So if I go back to some of our earlier conversation, there are about 3,400 housing authorities across the country. And for a long time, only 39 of the housing authorities had the flexibility offered through MTW. That's now expanded, and we have almost 139. There's another group that will be coming on, but when all's said and done, it will be 139 housing authorities across the country that will have greater flexibility to meet the needs of their community through this program. I will add that the MTW Collaborative is so important because I do see this as the future of this industry. Because public housing is local, and that has to remain the focus in order to be most effective.
I'm sure there's best practice sharing, and there's a lot of other organizational and operational sharing. And within that group, explain maybe some more of the agenda. Do you have a strategic vision to make it no longer a demonstration program, or what's on the horizon for that?
The good part about MTW and for the public, all of the flexibilities and the innovative local programs are available publicly. You can see those descriptions. And there have been many times where an agency in this very collegial way will say, my community might need this. Let me see if somebody else has already tried this out. And you can easily reach out to another agency and say, can you help me with this? And share those ideas so that we start to see not only the proliferation of new ideas and new ways of thinking, but also that we're helping each other in a very tough environment where we know we have a lot to do all the time, and so if somebody else has already tested something out, then why not use that? An example in the reason why MTW is so powerful and that's been recognized is that the legislation that came out 8 years ago in 2015, 2016, the HOTMA Act, HUD also recognized this and proposed these through, and certainly with Congress, that many of the ideas that came out in that act, in that legislation, were projects and programs that had already been tested by MTW agencies. And so have we demonstrated that the demonstration works? I think so. No, I know so.
Right.
And so maybe the demonstration word is a little redundant right now.
I completely agree. And some of the things that I've seen is that where you've had similarities in communities and needs, and yet they've been heard, no, can't do, unable to, but yet all of a sudden they reach across the aisle and they are seeing someone else in that space who has been able to navigate it. And then they have moved on to that level of success and brought it back to the community with a way that it can happen. And we need all those kinds of wins when we're trying to expand and preserve affordable housing.
Right. Well, what we know, and I wouldn't expect somebody sitting in Washington, D.C. to understand my community. And so just recognizing that, then the question is, how can we be most effective with the federal funding that we receive to best meet the needs of our community? And MTW is that tool that allows you to do that. And so why not make it available to all? And of course, there has to be oversight, and we certainly want to make sure that money's being spent well and so on. But at the end of the day, it's about what's best for our community. Why is it about the community? Because it's about the people, and the people are in the community. And I wouldn't expect someone who lives 1,000 miles away or 2,000 miles away or even 200 miles away to know what's in any of the 77 Chicago neighborhoods and what they need on a day-to-day basis. And so let's make sure that the resources are available to really execute on the needs of that very hyper-local community.
And that allows you guys to be nimble enough to truly meet those needs. And that's really what we're supposed to be doing anyway, in a very compliant and efficient way. So it's great when you can sing the praises of MTW and show how it works, and now spread it to your other 139 total mass of agencies who are going to be able to shine even brighter and farther in this preservation and expansion of affordable housing.
Right.
Well, Tracey, we have had a fantastic time talking about all things Chicago here, and you and MTW. I do appreciate the dedication here and all of the great things and awards you guys are doing up there in Chicago. So appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to hearing this and also hearing your podcast and the other changemakers that you've had on. It's quite an opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Changemakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.